All right, welcome back to edition 115 of the Bebo Knows podcast. This is your host, Brian Bullock, and with me once again for his NBA wealth of knowledge is Kevin, KJHOGO on the Twitters. How you doing today, Kevin?
Good. Thanks for having me. Yeah, third time on. I think, if you combined all of them, eventually I'm going to say something good for people listening. So hopefully, go through some of the preseason stuff. It turned around a lot faster than I was planning for between the end of the season and the start. But I think I got enough stuff ready here where we'll be able to get through it.
Okay, cool. And thanks for your patience, both you and the listeners here, because yeah, I was a little under the weather starting on Thursday night, and I was a little worried I caught the COVID, and thankfully
You had me sweating on Saturday. Yeah, I was nervous for you, or on Friday night. When we talked, and it is the next couple weeks are going to be wild. And it's already started. With cold and flu season going on top of
yeah.
that, so everything is going to feel like, and the paranoia is just going to set in on that stuff. But glad that you're feeling better. You were able to get a test, which is great. When we talked last time, I think testing availability was in a lot different circumstance,
Yeah.
and I think it's going to be just playing it cautious the next couple weeks. Everything seems to be getting worse here, but glad you're feeling better, man.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, everything was rescheduled with the family. Like we're still doing something tomorrow night, and it's just gonna be no meals, just like a quick gift exchange, things like that. So it's gonna be very hands off, but we still want to see each other's. I get that, and I get that feeling why people have done their family gatherings. I get that. I just hope that when people are doing that, that they're doing it as safely as they can. I don't know if everybody's doing it that way, but anyways, that's enough. I don't want to dive too much into that. I just kind of want to give a quick update. So yeah, the test involved like a quick swab of the of both nostrils and the mouth. So it's the first time I've ever had like a Q-tip sort of thing in my nose before. So that was
It's not fun. I've broken my nose a couple times, and I went to go get one, and the lady administering it was laughing at me because it wouldn't. Like, I bucked on it like way earlier than I guess normal people do. Like, I just my body just kind of was like rejecting it, or kind of like had that reflex right away. So last time I've gone for a test and I got laughed at, so I'm just gonna avoid human contact so I don't have to go through that again.
That's a good.
It's zero fun, especially, you did it while you were sick too.
Yeah.
So zero fun to do it, but it is nice that they're available, and like I said, glad you're feeling better for the holidays for sure.
Sure. Thanks. All right, so let's revisit the last pod at least briefly, because it was a unique situation. It was, I think, if I recall right, the NBA was they were the first sport to come back, right? Or a team sport. Anyways, I think.
So I was actually laughing because baseball was playing while we were recording our live.
That's right. I forgot about that.
It was just a debacle at first. Like Luis Soto, I think, on the Nats or someone had COVID and they couldn't even go like contact trace, all that stuff. So I remember seeing that, and I was actually pretty negative overall about the bubble and playing sports when it started. And when I was listening, I of course, I have a running joke on when I tweet, like basically anything I tweet, it's instantly proven wrong within like 10 seconds of it happening. And it could be anything, any sport, anything. Like it's incredible. But like I tweeted about Calipari getting being on the hot seat, losing to Notre Dame, and they were down 25 at half, and they almost won the game. So like it's an unbelievable power that I can't seem to harness for good. But I did expect the bubble to be. I thought it was the right way to do it. I think my big concern was, and we're going to talk about this year as well, but my big concern was just like the NBA has no contingency plan, and it doesn't have like a limit of players who need to play. They're basically just like assuming it's going to work out. And in the bubbles instance, like it did work out, right? Like no one got it. They were really diligent about testing and the quarantine when they came back in and the interaction with the staff. I think, it went off without a hitch, and that was kind of my whole point in the last pod was, if there is a hitch, there's no way to turn the boat, when the iceberg's coming. So I thought that was going to be a concern there, but they did at least do took the right necessary precautions, and it worked.
Yeah.
And then, I think you see and I mentioned on the last pod, like NFL is going to be a disaster, and it hasn't been great. I think now everyone's kind of like, oh, well, they finished the season, they did this, but Tuesday afternoon games, I think the Ravens played without 35 players, not 35, but their entire offense one game. Yeah. I don't even know, right? Yeah. And you saw even I'm a Pats fan, and even guys like Cam Newton just didn't look 100% right coming back. And the big thing that concerns me is that that's a sport that's being played every week, right? So if you get sick, it's like a 2-week time. This is your last negative test. You're going to miss 1 to 2 games, or even if let's say you time your sickness around a bye week or something, it's pretty minimal. But in the NBA, if they miss something in the bubble or now, it's going to be anywhere between 8 and 11 games or something like that, and that's a lot harder to make up for the NBA. They're not going to be able to just say, okay, we'll push this one game out this week, because then the ripple effects for the rest of the schedule is crazy. So I think the NBA did a great job in the bubble. I think the product was good. They had fans, they had announcers, the preseason stuff. I even thought the elimination game and kind of playing game for the 8 seeds were awesome, right? Adding some stakes into games that aren't just playoff series and adding some of that single game variance magic that the NCAA tournament has, I think is a great formula for the NBA. And if they can continue to build upon that, it'll be awesome. But the bubble itself, when I went back and listened, I was pretty negative about the possibility of there being an outbreak and them not having any way to adjust. There's no reschedule. There's no, they didn't know how to move the games out, TV stuff. They just expected it to all go right, and it did. So that's good. But I have my concerns about this season. And then, from the last pod, I think we talked, I brought up that I thought the Bucks and the Clippers were going to be in the title, and that did not happen. I wasn't really going out on a limb picking 2 of the 3 favorites. I even talked. It was weird because I did talk about LeBron being, the water that lifts all boats, right? Rising tide or whatever that saying is, because his team just never looked rattled. They would lose game 1 to the 8 seed or something, and it didn't matter. It just, in that weird environment with no home court advantage, having LeBron is the great X factor. He just makes all of his teammates better and everything. And I mentioned that, and then I proceeded to say that they're going to lose or get upset. So kind of maybe a little bit of a bias there as a Celtics fan. But I thought the product itself was compelling, and there were a lot of great moments, and being able to play when other sports weren't able to probably provided a lift for some NBA viewership stuff. And then, from us, there's a note here about what did I not like from the bubble. The officiating was bad. It was at the forefront bad. It was a bummer. There were some pretty significant missed calls, even with the replay, that I remembered. And guys like Tony Brothers or some of the other refs making themselves the show. There were guys that fouled out in Game 7 or got in foul trouble early. That it just seemed like there wasn't a good balance between letting playoff basketball happen and over officiating. And if they can't fix that, the NBA product going to be tough because it's just going to be consistent. Yeah, I mean, you see it every week in football. Every time you open up Twitter when the NFL game's on, it's 97 tweets about pass interference calls.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, granted, NFL viewership is still good, but I think if you're the NBA and you're trying to improve your product, you don't want officiating at the forefront. And I think it was an inordinate amount relative to how much other parts of the game was getting press. And then, I mean, it was kind of a bummer that they killed the strike. I did kind of want to see the players exercise their power to kind of say, all right, hold on, we actually are celebrities. We have power. We can do some stuff. And then everyone's saying like, well, playing is the best thing you can do. I don't really agree with that. I think, getting LeBron, getting everyone focused on just playing again, no matter what, kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But, he got his ring. He's happy. And there was no wildcat strike. But, I mean, it would have been like one of the first ones in sports in a long time, that type of a strike, just not showing up to games, that stuff.
Yeah.
Jaylen Brown, George Hill, there were a lot of guys at the forefront that actually had started putting together some real thought behind what they could accomplish by leveraging. You think about who NBA owners are and who are financially invested in this outcome, and it's people who are financially invested in a lot of United States, like in all different sectors of the economy, and have a great deal of influence. And so them withholding their work to get some things accomplished would have been a really cool feat for the NBA. So I was kind of bummed that got squashed so quick. I know fans are just happy that basketball's back on. So it's not the end of the world. But I think those two things, officiating and not seeing that through, were kind of the only real, and I guess LeBron winning the Lakers. I mean, LeBron, I have no real problem with LeBron himself. The Lakers winning in general was kind of a bummer. But yeah, those are, I guess so. Yeah, three things. The Lakers winning, I could have done without for sure.
Well, and to think like with how bad the Lakers were for like all those years, and then like all they need to do is sign like two of the top players in the NBA, and then they win championships again. It's like that's all they needed to do. And then
if I were a GM and like people were complaining about the draft, I would never listen to anyone again. I would just be like, shut up. Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like you need a massive free agent.
Yeah, nothing matters except having like two or three. Well, I mean, I guess certain teams have gotten away with not having like elite or like somebody is going to make the Hall of Fame from their current roster. Like usually, I think I looked back like many years ago, and there's been like at least like two Hall of Famers on almost every team that's won the NBA Finals like in history. Like a very high percentage, and like I know there, Miami. I don't, outside of I don't really know like what Butler's chances would be to make the Hall of Fame, but it wasn't like a team that I would have expected to have made the finals.
No, I really love Butler's game, and I think he does a lot of what Kawhi does and a lot of what LeBron does in terms of a floor raiser and a guy that against playoff defenses and playoff officiating gets to the free throw line and gets his shot off. He's just unflappable, and I've kind of moved away from as I've grown up the importance of a championship. Like I think I can still really enjoy teams being put together even if I know they're not going to win a championship. I don't think the NBA does a great job distancing themselves from, ring culture, I guess you could call it. I think the NBA should put more emphasis on how awesome some of these young guys are during the regular season. Maybe have some more high stakes stuff that isn't just free agency drama and the playoffs, right? I think getting some of that involved would be great. But when you see what happens with the Lakers, when they were like, people don't realize like the Lakers won less games over the span of the process than the Sixers. like if you go, I mean, depending on where the starting and end points are, but like even with Embiid resting and stuff, like the Lakers were atrocious, and they were not like poised to get much better. I think Ingram took a big step in New Orleans, and there were more draft picks possible probably, but just seeing that all it takes is being the free agent destination of choice to win a title was a little bit of a bummer. But on the flip side, then you have the Clippers, so it's not always the rosiest thing.
Yeah.
Like Clippers got their big free agents, and it didn't work out. But we'll talk. Also, we have a note here about Giannis and talk about their shortcomings in the bubble. I think if I did mention when I was going through, I listened. I did mention that Budenholzer is a concern, and it reared its ugly head again in terms of rotations and stuff, especially in the Miami series. So weird to see him still employed. I thought for sure he was gone in order to appease Giannis, especially since like he wasn't really thrilled when they fired Kidd anyway. But Budenholzer's still employed, so that definitely makes a difference. I did talk about some of the older guys getting rest and playing better, like Chris Paul, and he played well for OKC. So I didn't completely whiff on everything, but I did like the Western Conference series were really compelling in terms of the Mavericks. Like watching Luka play, it was really exciting. Some of those young guys, and you'll see. I mean, one thing I'm interested to see is how the shooting percentages continue for some of these guys. Like you could see with like Jamal Murray and Donovan Mitchell. Each scoring 40 points a game against the other team. Like the shooting percentages were wild. Like I was looking at some 3-point prop stuff to start messing around with. I'm not a huge prop bettor in general, just because the prop game is kind of the account game. Like you got to hustle to get accounts. You got to hustle to get money down. You'll get limited. You'll get booted. It's not like a super fun edge to maximize. But I was looking at some 3-point prop stuff, and you couldn't make a number high enough for some of these guys. Like Dame Lillard, I don't even know what it was showing an edge for under on him for all his prop numbers, and he just he hit like 9 threes a game, and you're like, I don't know, that doesn't seem like sustainable in current conditions. But there'll be no fans, so the backdrop's still going to be a little different from arena to arena. So we'll see if some of those shooting numbers continue. There were some pretty high numbers coming in the preseason games, and then there's like the Cavs with some pretty low numbers. So there'll be a range, but I am interested to see some of the, especially like the guards who shoot from really far away, like Trey, Dame, Steph. Like I would have loved to have seen Steph play in the bubble because it would have been video game numbers, and we'll see if those kind of continue with no fans to start. But yeah, overall bubble for me, like betting wise, was a success. Probably a little short on the Lakers. Had a good amount on the Celtics to win the East. That they blew 2 20-point leads in that series, so that was tough. I got a good enough number. I was able to get off a little bit towards the end of that Miami series, but and then the other thing was the LeBron James MVP numbers for the finals were crazy. I guess AD, there was a real chance he could have stolen it there at some point. Or, I mean, earned it. But those are really the kind of the bigger opinions I took on a whole. Bet some of the series stuff. I'm not going to go through and say all the bets I won and lost. But overall, like it was, you could make the adjustments. You could kind of see how things were changing in terms of offensive efficiency. It was nice. They played some like kind of scrimmage games too to get you warmed up to that as well, similar to how they just ran some preseason this season. Overall, getting to play and not having COVID run rampant on that many players in one space is huge. So it was a success from that standpoint. Next time they do that, just someone got to snitch on LeBron or something so the Lakers don't win. That's all I ask.
Okay. All right. So let's get into the current season because that's that starts
tonight.
Yeah, it starts tonight. Okay, so I guess this is like the perfect time for this here. So so as far as like the short off season, especially for teams like Miami and the Lakers, do you see that being any sort of advantage or disadvantage for them? Like, or are you looking at that are you looking at their lines any differently than say like teams that have been sitting out for the past 9 months?
It's tricky because they're they're also good teams if they lasted that long. You know what I mean? Like so they'd be able to weather some of the changes. I think from a longevity perspective, like how long teams lasted, it is hurting some teams, like in the short turnaround, like the Celtics. And I promise I'm not going to make this just a Celtics centric focus.
Hey, get out of here! With your Boston talk. Get out of here!
I know. Yeah, I haven't even.
That's a terrible accent. I don't even know
where
that
I was
came
on
from.
with Ben Affleck for a second.
Oh wow!
It sounded just like him.
Oh really? Oh really? Yeah. Okay.
You must have been moonlighting as a pod producer. The Celtics have like Kemba, who's out, and who's been battling knee stuff and kind of powered through the playoffs, and now it's going to bite them in the ass because he's going to be out with the short turnaround. The league came out and said that it was hysterical. Like these were in back-to-back press releases that NBA is going to fine teams that are resting players deemed not actually injured on for primetime games. Just the most specific circumstance, and I don't know how they prove players aren't injured, so good luck with that. But they're going to find teams like $100K, I think.
And sorry to interrupt, but like that heavily weighs against like teams that are like just the prime team. So like teams like the Lakers and like whoever else is getting these primetime games. You're telling me that like a team like the Hornets isn't going to have to worry about like I just pull a team.
You're totally right. Yeah.
It's like, all right, like I mean, there's a clear disadvantage, and so like, I guess I'm wondering if there's going to be some, hey, we'll just suck it up and pay, or maybe there's more to this. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but maybe
no. I mean, actually, that sets it up perfectly because the next release was, if your team did really well in the playoffs and you played later, you'll get leniency for resting guys.
Okay.
Yeah. So like immediately they were like, I can just imagine LeBron, or like Clutch or, someone making the call and saying, hey, that's not going to fly. Like our guys need to rest. They were playing until October. So immediately after the NBA said that one thing, they had to walk it back and say like, well, if you were playing long and you need the rest on back-to-backs, like it's okay. Like we're not going to fine you. Like undermine their whole entire process. The next press release. So I don't think it's enforceable. I think there will be some resting, and I think that's the best for the players. I'd rather see guys help. Like watching Durant and Steph play in the preseason. I don't know why you wouldn't want these guys healthy. And it's proven that back-to-back stressors and not getting the correct amount of rest, especially coming off of injuries, is more likely to re-injure yourself or linger, especially like soft tissue stuff. So why wouldn't you just be okay with these guys missing a game or two here or there on scheduling things and still have them play? Like I'd rather have the big names in there. And for other, smaller names too, I don't want anyone hurt, but it's just such a different game with guys like Durant and Curry and Kyrie and, all those guys healthy that it honestly, it seems so backwards that they would start doing punitive responses as opposed to just scheduling less back-to-backs. Like just expand this, I would be all in on focusing on the scheduling as opposed to the punishment, but they won't hire me at the NBA, so it doesn't really matter what I think. But we'll talk. I mean, we'll talk about it here, like what the home court advantage means. A lot of that built in nowadays is travel and rest, as opposed to some of it's the crowd, but a lot of it is travel and rest. And if you get screwed with back-to-backs against harder teams, like, what can you do? It's scheduling matters in the NBA, and it's something that I take into account quite a bit. And we saw it in the bubble that the lack of travel, it was probably also a pretty big advantage for players in terms of their productivity, in terms of their efficiency and stuff like that. Like, home court advantage, the crowd is good, but having, being where you're going to play all the time and not having to travel and then turn around and do it back to back, or not have practice, or not have time for a walkthrough because of a delayed flight or something, like, a lot of those bumps are mitigated in the bubble, and they're going to still be pretty prevalent now, especially with, I think there are some travel rules for teams, like their timing. It's very specific now with some of the COVID protocol. So we're going to be keeping an eye on how much rest and how much travel. And the only way to really do that is to be following a lot of the beat writers and reporters and seeing who's stuck on planes and stuff like that. It's going to be an interesting kind of wrinkle for the season. But the original point there was, I do think it's a disadvantage if you've played longer into the season, but the majority of those teams are kind of equipped to handle that. Like, LeBron might play, he was playing pretty big minutes last year, but he might start out the season playing 28 to 30 minutes as opposed to 34 to 36 minutes, right? Take off, especially resting in big blowouts and stuff, but it's still 30 minutes of LeBron, so you'll be fine. I'm not too worried about the Lakers playing him 30 versus 36. They may not cover 11, but so you should watch that if you're going to be betting games. Try and bring that back to betting and say, hey, like, we've noticed on back-to-backs, LeBron's down to about 25 a game. Like, that stuff you'll be able to notice and maybe exploit. Or first and second half splits where maybe he's playing less in the second half of games the night before a back-to-back or something like that. You'll start to find those little things that add up because of the unusual circumstances.
Sure. Okay. All right. So, as this virus still runs pretty rampant in America here, how do you see NBA adjusting to? And I say eventual breakouts because, like, just using simple percentages of how it's still blowing up in America, and I just don't see how they're going to be able to avoid it, because nobody's been able to avoid it. Even people who work from home haven't been able to avoid it. So how do you personally see it? Because I know you made a note here about some of the other leagues where there's been, like, I guess, disaster, for lack of a better word, in some certain circumstances, where it's like, that whole Pittsburgh-Baltimore game where they pushed it back like 3 separate times. I was just like, I just didn't understand why they couldn't, like, maybe, like, make a week like 18 or something like that, like, and just play that one game and then push everything else back a week. I don't know. That was just my thought, because they just kept pushing it back. But anyways.
So you nailed it, though. Like, why don't they have a contingency plan to say, like, okay, we know things are going to get screwed up. We should build in a buffer into this schedule to play things that get messed up. Like, it's crazy to me to say, people, and you get your media folks who call them Corona bros or whatever because they're being negative. But if you're not, like, cynical about this and planning ahead, then you're going to end up with a much worse scenario than if you are cynical. Like, hey, let's space these out and build in. And I think, one of the things the NBA has done is they've only released half the schedule. So I think they are trying to build in a little bit of a buffer for that second half of the schedule.
Okay.
But, to your point, like, why did the NFL just build in 2 more weeks for delayed games or replaying, or, I'm not smart enough to come up with the contingency plan, but someone that gets paid a lot of money You'd think like that would come up. But yeah, I mean, college basketball, they're just canceling games left and right. College football towards the end of the season, as you mentioned, like the infection rate is going up, or maybe infection rate might be the wrong term, but you know what I mean, like the case rate, the contact tracing is harder to do, especially on college campuses and stuff. So I mean, you're seeing college at what did Ohio State played 6 games this year, right? Total. I mean, that's maybe disaster is not the right term for their season because they're going to the college football playoffs, but playing 6 total games is probably not great. Probably not what they had drawn up. Yeah. So, you know, college basketball, those games are getting canceled like crazy. They're trying to reschedule on the fly. So you just see that, and you just see that the NBA has not done anything to buffer for that, and I don't understand like what their expectations are for these games. So I mean, a big part of betting basketball this year is going to be just news watching, headline watching, adjusting fast for injuries. You know, you're not going to make any friends if you bet into stale lines or bet, you know, injury news and injury steam. But or if you make those bets every time, but if you get a few of those in fast enough, you know, it's always a good buffer to have for betting. So, you know, I'll just be hawking news and updates from that perspective.
Now, in regards to the betting angle of this, do you anticipate putting money down on games like later than you normally would? Like, you know, maybe not like I don't even know your typical pattern. If you're normally betting lines like 12 hours out. I mean, I know it's usually like when you're trying to maximize your value, so you're thinking, you know, you're I don't know when that normally is. I guess it could probably vary game to game, but like, do you think you're going to be betting later in the day on these games than normal because of this, or are you just going to kind of just like take your chances and just hope for the best?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll run through a little bit. I think I talked a little bit about kind of the feeding frenzy at 10 a.m.-ish when all the books are kind of posting lines and the limits go up. And that's when you want to try and be ready. Now, people bet overnights in basketball. You can get I think you get like a dime down at Heritage or something, or maybe, you know, you can nickel and dime your way up to a pretty good figure early. I know people that bet NBA at like 6 a.m. and I'll get a message, you know, at like 8 when I'm logging on for work, like, hey, you know, this has already moved, this is blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, man, I wasn't even awake. I don't know what these people are, right? Because I mean, part of that is I just probably don't wake up early enough. But the other part is a lot of the bigger things happen when those limits go up. And you don't want to make any enemies moving the screen earlier than other people can get down. And you kind of see some of the opinions come in as well. So that, I mean, that's usually about the time. It's always fun. I mentioned that on one pod a while back, but if you pop open the NBA screen on like Sportsbook Review or Don Best, if you have it, and you can kind of see it light up right around 10, 11 a.m. as people start to kind of fire into the higher limits. And that's usually a good time to, if you want to beat line movements and you want to get CLV and that's important, and it is for betting, that's when you want to make sure you're in by before some of the larger movements come in from big groups and what a sports media, the wise guys, if you will. I'm gonna start using that term for everybody now. I heard someone brought that up the other. I think I was listening to like.
Oh, okay, KJHOGO there.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, the wise guys, the real sharp money.
RJ and Charlotte over there.
RJ and Charlotte, yeah, that's what you call me. But yeah, I mean that money comes in at around 10 or 11, and that's not like a industry secret. You can see it's just when limits kind of go up after overnights kind of get bet into, and some of the bigger books, Pinnacle and Chris will open up their lines and their limits. So that's a great time to get in. Do I always get everything in at that time? No. I'm still hacking away at a day job too, so
Yeah.
never know what's going to come up. But I try. I aim for that time, and then there will be more betting later in the day because you're just going to be waiting on status updates. So you'll have scenarios for if X plays or X is out, and then you just got to be the first to adjust with the news, and you got to be confident in your adjustments to the player impact. So, there's two parts to it. Like, how fast can you do it? Can you do it faster than the rest of the market? And can you do it smarter
Sure.
on that stuff? So usually, like, you catch some news and then you'll gamble while gambling. Like, okay, I'm going to take some of this now, maybe not a full play, but take some of it now because based off some of the quotes I've seen, I think that person's going to be out. So then you're kind of betting on injuries and betting on the game, or betting on the lineups. I wouldn't recommend making that like a habit because you can get torched in the NBA real bad because they don't give a shit. They'll bench people at 6:59 for 7 p.m. games, right? Like, but a lot of the news trickles in for lineups, within the hour of tip off, and so then I'll have to make whatever adjustments and bets then later in the day, as you mentioned. So yeah, it will mess up my timing. I'm not sure how confident I'll be on some of the news dumps early in the morning and betting. So it will probably be more spread out throughout the day. But then you're running the risk of you are betting into more mature markets that are going to have information from people that know what they're talking about. So either you're getting a worse number or then you see it move the other way and you're like, oh shit, like, what does someone know at this point that maybe I'm missing? So it will be, especially early, trying to figure out what the flow of information is on any COVID reporting. The NFL kind of had its release points for testing, and you could kind of see those get dumped with Schefter and everybody. But I don't know what that schedule is for the NBA right now. Like, when is Shams going to release all the positive or negative? And then in the notes I had here, like, the number of players so far that have just been like on social media out and about is crazy right now.
Yeah.
Like, doing music videos down here in Charlotte and one of them, he's like holding like Miles Bridges has masks holding like money, and like I'm not here to like, I don't love like snitching on players and piling on. So make your own decisions. Like, you're adults. Hopefully they're being safe with like the people around them and not getting them sick. But like, from an NBA perspective, if I were in the front office, like, I would be like, oh shit, like, I don't know what we're gonna do if Otto Porter was out and like Harden was in Las Vegas. I don't know how you even begin to stem that flow of media going out and the people actually going out. So it'll be I think, like, for us, you got to see if the NBA is playing a PR game and not releasing all the numbers of people impacted. I saw the NFL got burnt a couple times doing that. Like, who was it? Des Bryant the other night, right? Got pulled off the field.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's the thing with this stuff is like, there's no even like, there's no incentive for the league to give us more information about it. So we're going to be battling that all season, trying to figure out like what they're willing to hide and how late they're willing to drop some of the info. So yeah, it'll be more dispersed throughout the day and probably just more cautious. Waiting for the news.
Although like with their recent partnerships with some of these sports books, I wonder if it would be in their best interest to report the news.
Yeah, you'd have to think so. I mean, that sounds right. And the NBA has like a pretty, I was lamenting some of them like holding out players late, and it happened. Like, Derrick Rose was one that was a late scratch like a million times. But for the most part, NBA does a pretty good job with injury reporting and stuff like that. So it really could be, like you're saying, like, well supplied. And I mean, although the books will get it first, or whatever partnerships they have on that data will get it first. But that means that someone has the information, so it'll get to me eventually. And that's really the key is, like, as long as you can get what's actually going to happen at some point, you can adjust. It's that uncertainty of, he wasn't feeling well before the game, so they pulled him, is going to be where I get a little more nervous.
Sure. Okay, I'm going to reorder some of these things on the
Yeah.
outline here. I'm going to touch base on the Giannis thing next, but we're going to stick with the betting theme here and just about the about your about your models and just anything like in terms of the off season that you might have tweaked or adjusted. And like I said in the outline here, I don't expect you to give away like your secret sauce or anything like that. But what were some areas you focused on with regards to like the tweaks that you might have made to your models?
Yeah. Honestly, like the thing with that is, and there's some stuff, and I talk to some people after I do these to make sure that I didn't give away too much, but there is there's some stuff that you can talk about and it may seem like secret sauce, but if you don't have like the underlying values for players or teams and that type of stuff, then it doesn't really matter. So I don't have to be overly cautious talking on here about it, which is nice. But in terms of like adjustments, big one is no training camp, no summer league. So like I just got a notification that Wiseman is starting for Golden State tonight. You know, he barely played in preseason or just got a couple minutes here and there. And you know, all the rookies, right? Like LaMelo had a bunch of highlight reel stuff, but you can see, especially the rookie on-ball guys, a ton of turnovers. It's a whole different game in terms of speed, making the jump. I think, in my opinion, making the jump as an on-ball guy in the NBA, like from college to NBA, is probably the biggest hurdle. You see even like some of the best rookie guards outside of like Chris Paul, like they all have pretty high turnover rates. They all struggle with that, and the speed is a little much for them early. Well, it's that times a million now because they got out and, you know, maybe they've been doing workouts and stuff since college last year. But the speed of the game in like the real live situations, like adjusting rookie priors and handling the impact they're going to have, especially like high minute rookies, is going to be really tricky. Going to be watching those closely. I follow a bunch of people. There's a Prep to Pro podcast I want to plug for some of my buddies that and some of those writers that do just a fantastic job of scouting these guys. I mean, they're watching them since high school. So I do feel like I have a decent handle on some of the strengths and weaknesses of the rookies coming in, but quantifying that is a whole nother beast. So high minute rookies are going to be really tricky with with limited preseason, no summer camp, no summer league, and no training camp. That's number one. And there are only a few like really high minute rookies usually a year, but that'll be an interesting one to see. From a non-tweak perspective, one thing that's nice is that a lot more continuity this offseason than in previous off seasons. No like real blockbuster deals, some re-signings. Like Harden was supposed to be kind of the blockbuster deal, and everyone's kind of sitting on their hands with that one right now. But you know, the biggest uncertainty would be maybe like Brooklyn with KD and Kyrie healthy, seeing like what and new coaches. Nash is someone who has no coaching experience, so who knows what to think of Brooklyn. We'll be, you know, I'll be more responsive to some of their early numbers, maybe, especially for KD and Kyrie, seeing them actually play together. Because you got to wonder how like invested Kyrie was last year without him playing and with a kind of a lame duck coach and stuff. So those will be some of the adjustments we'll on teams that have had any sort of major roster turnover. But the nice part is not a ton of them. And then we talked about it in the previous section, but just looking out for opportunities where guys might play less than you would expect them to.
Sure.
So yeah, you'll see guys that like I mentioned, like LeBron or something like that maybe he was only playing 25 on a back-to-back. So I think that those are probably three main areas I had jotted down. You're going to have to respond to a lot of tumultuous injury reports probably. And we'll have to see how the empty arenas kind of shape some of the shooting numbers and officiating. But rookies are a huge question mark. Some of these guys coming back from injuries, like Steph, huge question mark. What that team makeup's going to look like. The Warriors don't look anything like they did a couple of years back. And if you're using player ratings that factor in multiple seasons, you kind of have to adjust for that a little bit. And then just the home court advantage type stuff. So will the no crowds make a huge difference? What does the travel look like? Is travel going to have to be interrupted because of COVID stuff? And how much are we adjusting for that? So those would be some of the main points. I don't really have any like specific numbers to give you to say like adjust 1 point if it's going to be if the travel gets moved up, so it's not quite that secret sauce, but it like for points of emphasis, just in a weirder season, I think those are a good place to start.
Yeah, and I think even the best are still trying to figure that stuff out, because I imagine that a lot of the stuff that you learned about the bubble itself is kind of like a one-off almost, like where it's almost like it doesn't apply to any other season ever. So I don't even know how much of like what you learned from the bubble you could even apply to now, except maybe like the no crowds thing. But yeah, you mentioned like the minutes and stuff like that, and I just was thinking to myself how LeBron's like I think played in the NBA like half of his life now.
I can't believe that dude is still. Man, I could rant about him for forever, because every year it's like, well, this could be the one where LeBron falls off a cliff, and every year my dumbass loads up on like the Rockets or the Raptors or like, I mean, this will be the one where, he finally, all those minutes catch up to him, and then he's like putting his head in the rim while he's dunking in like game 7. And I'm like, why? It's literally Charlie Brown and the football, like every single year. I've been watching him do this, like you said, like for half his life, for like all of my life, like
all of your betting life.
And every year I'm like, this is the year the Rockets upset him, and then I watch him just destroy 45-inch vertical dunks in my face while I do. I fall for it every time. So maybe that's something I learned from the bubble, is to stop being an idiot and just like believe some of the hype. Like, hey, maybe that LeBron James guy, pretty good basketball player. You should probably adjust. Yeah, you should probably adjust for that. I think coaching is actually probably bigger than I realized too. I think a lot of the coaches. I was watching some of the Nets preseason stuff, and having MDA D'Antoni on the bench is going to be huge for them. Great. Offensive mind to have with Kyrie and KD. Going to be a ton of good wrinkles in there. So probably going to be looking for some intangible type stuff like that to maybe be the difference maker on some of these teams this year. Coaching, top end talent, veterans versus rookies. But that was that is my promise to everyone. I'm not, and especially myself, I'm not going to load up on an edge on a team against the Lakers just until like I really stop and think about that LeBron is a pretty good basketball player.
Yeah, you're gonna have to see something deteriorate in him before somebody else does before you
once those playoff series lines come out, I'm just gonna give someone all my logins and just lock me out and don't let me go bet until like the series is like 3 games in. Then I can bet, because I swear I fall for it every time, man. I had the Rockets, had some good numbers on them. They came out, they won, kept stuff close, had a tough couple end games with Russell Westbrook, which, weren't great. And I was still like, yep, this is the year. We get them. I know I'm right. Telling my buddies like, yeah, I'll buy your, like one of my friends is a Rocket fan, John. I was like, I'll buy the kids Harden jerseys if they win this, like trying to get some good mojo going. And then they just destroy them in 5 games. And I'm like, how did I not see that coming? Like every year. Same thing with like DeMar DeRozan and the Raptors doing that. Every year I would be like, oh, Raptors look good. Nick Nurse is a good coach, blah, blah, blah. And LeBron still, I guess maybe Nick Nurse wasn't coaching when LeBron was in the East, but the Raptors still had good teams and won a lot of games. And I was like, yeah, this is the one. LeBron's toast. He had like Jeff Green playing significant minutes in for the Cavs, and they still went to the fucking final. I don't know, man. Like I think that's it. Like that. Those are the 2 like guarantees. Like bet on a LeBron team and bet on the Raptors regular season win over, because the Raptors always win a million games in the regular season, and LeBron always does well in the playoffs. Those are 2 guarantees in basketball.
Yeah. What was it? I forgot what I was going to say about that, but. Okay, so so we have some. Oh no, I remember what I was gonna say. Yeah, as far as the Lakers go, like it'd be a nice feature for sports books, at least for you, if there was a way to make invisible all Lakers lines.
Remove all the betting on them in the regular season is fine. Yeah, just like series prices for the Lakers, just remove them. I don't want to see them. Like don't let me bet on any futures that aren't the Lakers. It's just dumb. I mean, I still think the Rockets had a really good team, and there were some pretty bad decisions down the stretch of close games. But again, look, you can even hear myself like talking myself back into it. Like, no, it was good bet to bet against LeBron every time. Yeah. It's tough. I think the East will be a lot of fun. Budenholzer's still a coach, so the Bucks are going to choke at some point probably. And he just doesn't play his starters enough minutes in the playoffs. Like, if you look at Giannis's minutes, he's like, even with the injury, like, if you factor out the injury, he was still, like, only playing 30 minutes a game. And, like, for most – and I talked about this in that last bubble, like, the top 3 players, minutes-wise for teams in the playoffs, when you do the lineup, the rotation shortening, it's usually, like, over half of the total minutes possible for the team. And, like, he was still playing them, like, he's playing Middleton and Giannis like 31, 32 minutes a game when they should have been playing 36, 38. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you have your 2-time MVP and you have him sitting on the bench in critical moments in the 3rd and 4th quarter. And I felt like I was taking crazy pills watching him coach. Like, if you told me that it was Budenholzer that booked my Bucks future, then I would have believed you, because he certainly had no interest in them cashing. So he'll go as far as the Bucks will go as far as he doesn't screw up, and Giannis can carry them. But that comes up in one other point. But yeah, the East is going to be really fun this year. I think the Sixers are awesome. Morey managed to do a lot of cleanup on that roster in terms of spacing and getting guys like Danny Green, who are going to be really great next to Embiid and Simmons. And then I think the Heat still are really good. Jimmy Butler in the playoffs is as good as it gets. So East playoffs are going to be a blast, and then the West playoffs, I just refuse to let my brain think anyone but LeBron is going to win it if he has functioning limbs. Even then, I don't even know. Like, if he lost one of them, I still might have to pick him at this point. You could just regenerate one.
Oh yeah, in some lab. All right, so we were talking about Giannis, and well, first of all, like I have a soft spot for Budenholzer only because like I won a big futures on him like a long time ago when he won Coach of the Year with the Hawks. And I still don't know how the Hawks won so many games that one year when they won like 60-something games with him.
Yeah, that was awesome.
I mean, it was pretty cool. I thought Kerr was going to win it because that was the year that I think that was the year that the Warriors won 73. But I was happy to take that 75-1 win. But I know that he's been critiqued quite a bit, like you were mentioning about the minutes thing. But if I remember right, they've made a lot of moves where like somebody was suggesting that they made moves this year that like made it so that like there would be no way Budenholzer could do what he did before. With depleting some of the bench, I think.
I remember right. They took those shiny new toys on the bench away from him, but the problem is he still might just play the worst players from the bench. So I don't know. I mean, it was really baffling watching some of their games, and I was probably higher on the Heat even preseason than I think some people were. I think a lot of the players there that are kind of like, kind of not super flashy or not flashy. I don't know, like just not universally accepted as like good players. A little underrated maybe, like guys like Kelly Olynyk, or they got Iguodala healthy, which even in limited minutes he's a very productive player. So um, I think that I don't think it's as big as of an upset as everyone thinks. I think it's a big disappointment for the Bucks. But yeah, Budenholzer it just made some real baffling rotation decisions. And the other thing is, like, it's not like it just happened in one series. Like, he's been doing this for years. I think they lost a game to the Orlando Magic, and Giannis played like 31 minutes. And you're like, I don't know, man. Like, what are we doing anymore? It seems pretty simple, but maybe there's like some sort of kind of secret formula to his rotations that he thinks is beneficial. I don't know, but like my big thing is playing your best players the most minutes is a huge edge in the playoffs, and that's why teams that may only win like 50 games in the regular season or 45 games in the regular season may actually be better playoff teams because you do play your guys more minutes. Like I think Tatum was playing almost 40, right? Like that helps, and or like Kyle Lowry's playing a ton of minutes for the Raptors, those type of guys. LeBron, that's where you're like getting those edges where you have the top end talent like Budenholzer has, and you're playing them a ton of minutes. Now, like some of the stuff with Giannis, I think is a concern, but probably not as big of a one as other people make it. Is the shooting? Like I think if you keep him in the right roster mix, the good thing is he's a willing shooter. Like he'll pull up from three if you're really laying off him, and he's had a couple games where he shot the ball well. I don't think he's ever going to turn himself into Steph, but being willing to shoot is a huge factor on just getting defenses to even bite like a little bit. Like I think a lot of people have been in the NFL have been focusing on how the play action, even like if you haven't established a run, even just an extra step for your wide receivers, like you have the fastest guys in the world on the outside, like an extra step for them is a pretty big deal. So getting someone to bite and come out a little bit on your shot is going to be big for sorry, I was just turning off some notification sounds so they weren't in the background. But so I don't think he needs to be like a lights out shooter to be really good. Like he scored 30 points a game last year and efficiently. So he gets to the free throw line a bunch. I'd probably want him to be a little better free throw shooter. I think that'd be a place where I'd be more concerned than his 3-point shooting. But I just don't see. I think that concern is a little overblown with him. Like, oh, he can't play in the playoffs. He can't do this until like I see him playing 40 minutes a night and like being awful in the playoffs. He's still young.
Yeah, I didn't. When I was putting it together this outline, and we'll transition to the Giannis part now. But as far as I forgot that he was like only like 24. I think
25. Yeah,
25.
So it's contract's going to take him into his. Yeah, right. People are like, why would he sign this? Well, Giannis is also like has a different relationship with U.S. cities, I think, not being from here. So like some of that big market, small market discussion that everyone is intent upon having in the NBA might be lost on him a little bit, at least to start, right? He's been open about how much he loves Milwaukee. It's pretty nice city, and the organization there loves him, has done a lot to develop him. And that's not taking away from any of the work he's done on his own, but they put him in great positions. The other thing that I don't think they get the credit they deserve on it is they've done a good job building a team around him. Like they make moves where they feel like they have shortcomings. They took some stabs on guys in order to put him in the best position to win as they felt necessary. Like they got Marvin Williams last year. They made the trade for Eric Bledsoe from the Sun. They're willing to pull the, they re-signed Chris Middleton to that deal when I think people weren't really 100% bought into how valuable he was. And I mean, last year he's like a 50, 40, 90 guy, and kind of showed that he could live up to the salary. In the playoffs, he struggled a little bit. But at the end of the day, like, it's not like they're leaving him out to dry in Milwaukee, right? It's not like they're devoid of talent. They draft pretty well. Sterling Brown's a decent player. Dante DiVincenzo, one of the best Italian basketball players in the NBA. Pretty short list, I think. But I mean, yeah, they draft well. They put a team around him where he's in a position to succeed, and it's also life-changing money. Like at 25, like taking that contract is the smart thing to do. Also, with how good he is, like he's a two-time MVP. He's one of the favorites to win it again this year. There's no untradeable contract when you're that good. Teams will move whatever they need to move to get that done if they're going to get you on the team. And you've seen it time and time. Like Chris Paul was an untradeable contract. Mike Conley was an untradeable contract. Russell Westbrook. Like there is no untradeable contract as much as we want to say that. Like it dependent upon very specific circumstances? Yeah, sure. But teams would move heaven and earth to get Giannis on their team. So if they need to get the finances done, they would. And I think Giannis is staying on a team that was very good, like really, really good. Won 1 billion games last year, and he was the MVP. So I get that staying with them is the right thing. I think it was the right decision for him. All the talk about him wanting to be on the Warriors and the Lakers to start, like I think is nice for NBA media people to do the reporting. But I think from his standpoint, I know he's had some of his family there. I think his girlfriend or wife, he's got a son out there. Like it seems like a pretty good fit for him. And I try not to speculate too much on personal stuff with sports. But I just don't understand why so many people were shocked by the deal. If you're only evaluating stuff by like winning a ring, like we talked about earlier, I think you're doing yourself a disservice in terms of setup. And if winning a ring is like the most important thing in the world to him, then one, he's going to have, because of his contract and because of his play, he's going to have some weight to throw around organizationally, similar to LeBron, similar to all the stars who say like, hey, I want to play with this guy, and then team just get it done. Like the stars in the NBA have power. So and you see like what Harden's doing when he wants a trade, or what Chris Paul did when he wanted to trade. They just say, I want to trade, and the team trades him, So it's not like this is like he's going to be in Milwaukee until he, perishes. Like he's going to be in Milwaukee as long as he wants to be there, and he's going to be there for his prime, and there are going to be other good players there. And I think and he's going to make a shitload of money. For me, that's a good setup. Like if I was trying to force my way out, like if you look what the Warriors kind of have right now, I'm not a huge buyer on Wiseman. I don't. I think that was a bit of a reach. Playing with Steph is great. Maybe a little bit of an understatement there, but like secondary players, I'd much rather have the Milwaukee roster right now than the Warriors roster, or like Lakers are great, but how does he fit next to I mean, everyone fits next to LeBron, but next to AD too, that's a tougher situation as well. So it seems like it makes a lot of sense, both basketball, money, personally, to stay in Milwaukee. And I can't say like I want him to win a ring because my fandom dictates that I want him to lose as a Celtics fan. But I wouldn't be surprised if he won one in the next 2 years. Like their team is still really, really good. And he's, you look at a general agent curve for the NBA, he's still kind of entering his prime, and he's already won 2 MVPs. So, does he have some limitations that maybe might keep his ceiling around where he is right now? Yeah, but that's still really good. Like he's still a top 3 player in the NBA, and that's who you can win titles with. As you mentioned, like you need Hall of Famers and these guys that are just that dominant to win titles, and he kind of brings that on his own. So, he's already one piece of the equation, and I think they can figure out the rest around him.
Sure. Yeah, so when I put this together, this outline, I think I was shocked only because of the fact that I started looking through, or just mentally thinking through all of the superstars in the NBA, and realizing that I couldn't really think of too many superstars that are still with their original teams, and I'm thinking like guys that have been in the league for like 6 or more years. Maybe outside of like Curry and Thompson, I couldn't think of like other guys that fit that bill that were still on the original team. So in that aspect, that's the main reason I'm shocked. But I guess, I mean, like you said, he's only 25, so he still has time, like in the latter half of his career, to say, you know what, fuck it, I don't like the Bucks anymore. I don't like the direction of the team, and I could still get like, you know, one or two good more contracts, you know, and you know, he could go on his merry way to another team. But
that's my thing. Like, it's crazy to jump ship on a 60-win team, like in a shortened season. Like, why? To what? Right? What are the? I mean, I guess a better coach, right? Like, you know, I think that, or maybe a player that you think you fit better with than some of those guys.
Yeah.
But like, to me, like, it's not like he's Karl Towns in Minnesota, like never playing a playoff game ever. You know, it's a much different situation, and like you said, the age is a huge factor there. He's got time. The immediacy isn't probably as big of a need as it is for some of the older guys.
Yeah.
And then you see guys like Gordon Hayward who moved to Charlotte, and that was, you know, one of the crazier ones to me.
Yeah.
So you never know what these guys are thinking. There is some humanity involved that I think we kind of gloss over a little bit, but I think it was a good deal for both parties at the time, and people are saying like he's going to waste away in anonymity and without rings up there. Well, I don't know. He's just going to keep stacking MVPs and having the best team, regular season team, at least to start. So there could be worse case scenarios, I guess, for a player.
And you know, one thing that I didn't really think about, but that'll be beneficial to me potentially, is that, you know, a couple years ago I happened to have to luck into getting like a free Bucks ticket from a friend. Like we went up there and, you know, got a chance to watch him in person, and it was a lot of fun to watch. They ended up, I think they trailed the whole game and they came back a little bit, but then they ended up losing. I think it was to the Wizards. But just being able to have a chance to watch him maybe one or two more times, because Milwaukee's not too far away from here, so I might.
I mean, I think that's a great way to look at it, and a lot of teams and a lot of people miss that when they talk about basketball. Is that there are so many great players to go out and get to see and experience live. Like I've made it a personal thing to go watch LeBron live quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I've seen him live 8 or 9 times. I mean,
Nice.
more than
Since 2012, 2013, on all different teams. I was there at the game where he stared down Michael Jordan, you know, the last Bobcats home game in the playoffs on the 1-8 seed when he was on the Heatles.
Yeah.
I saw him play for the Cavs when he in the second time around when he came down to Charlotte and stuff. I saw him beat the snot out of the Celtics in Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Like, that's the stuff, like, getting to watch those guys play at the height of their career is really awesome to go down there and check it out. And I think, like, that anecdote was awesome because I don't think enough people, like, enjoy that. Like, they are always thinking, you know, what's their legacy going to be, or are they going to win a title or something? But, man, just go watch this dude. Like, even I saw Russell Westbrook play live when he was really healthy, and I just couldn't get over how fast the dude is. And it sounds dumb, but like if you manage to in Charlotte, you can score some pretty good seats because they don't win many games. Yeah. And like you get a little closer to the court and you see these guys and what they can do athletically, and it's awesome. So I think I think I always try and err to the side of like being excited to watch players, even if their team isn't, you know, the 72 win Golden State Warriors, right?
Yeah. And I guess I was a Bulls fan. I guess I'm that typical Bulls fan when they were good.
Yeah.
Don't really give a shit about them now, and I really don't. So like, you know,
their front office failed you guys. So
it's terrible. So, you know, I just tend to ignore basketball for the most part when it comes to the Bulls. So I couldn't speak on anything they've done this offseason just because, you know, I know that they're still going to be shit. You know, at least there hasn't been any indication for me to believe otherwise. So I'm just going to continue to have that belief until I'm proven wrong. So, But just being able to go like an hour further north to watch like a decent team, like maybe once every couple of years, that's a lot of fun. And Milwaukee's a fun town for those who haven't been there. That environment, I don't know if you've ever been to Milwaukee, but their games it had like a college feel to it, because I think I want to say they play. I don't. Do they play in the same arena that Marquette does, or I don't remember.
I think they did share arenas. I think the owners either built a new one or are in the process of building a new one. The Lazarys and all those guys up there. But Milwaukee, Oklahoma City. Like, I do want to go to some games in these kind of smaller towns, because the energy there is nuts. It's incredible, like how they sell out, and like the smaller towns, when they have good teams, are insane. Like, it is the epicenter of all social activity there, and go to watch Giannis. Like, I would love to go up and watch like a Bucks Heat game with Butler playing, or like something like that, where like I think it would be awesome, because like you said, the environment, the town is really cool. When do you get a chance? Like, not always like a big destination city, like, hey, I'm going to go take my vacation to Milwaukee, but I would love to go up and Giannis is good for the NBA, and that he's going to give people a purpose to go do that. So I'm excited to watch him, and the team's going to be really good for a long time, and just hopefully they're the second best team behind the Celtics. That's all I care about.
Fair enough. All right. One last thing here about the current season. I guess, and there's some other questions that'll maybe cover the current season, but as far as the outline goes, I mentioned a section here about futures and over-unders you might have your eye on, and I added this caveat because I think that over-unders could be challenging. I don't really know how books are handling it, because I think I want to say I saw some tweets from people about there's some books that have win percentage over-unders instead of actual game over-unders, and I don't really know if that's prevalent, or if it's or if you kind of got to just kind of keep your eye on the. I mean, obviously you got to keep an eye on the wording of the future, but I don't know if these factors are maybe making you not consider doing these over-under, or maybe you don't even do these totals. What?
So I bet some that I think that may have some discrepancies that are worth it. At this point, like, I think you were on the outline, 70, they got to play 70 games minimum for win total stuff. So like last year they all got canceled anyway. So even if they were mathematically in, so it was kind of like a who cares thing. I wasn't going to put a ton of time into them. I did kind of look at some stuff that I know from people I know that are really good at this, especially with not the whole schedule being released. I was talking to some people about how they were handling that, and I saw a few that were interesting, that kind of stood out, that I figured I'd bring up. One was, the Brooklyn under was an interesting one. I'm not like saying it's a lock. I'm not. I wouldn't say about anything, but like just from a variant standpoint, like their top end and their bottom is like huge. The range of outcomes for their season is pretty big, but last I checked, they were top of the top for win totals outside of Milwaukee. They were way up there. So I just think that's a little bit premature. I think they may eventually take some precautions with Kyrie and KD's health. Kyrie has had to take off and rest, even back when he was with the Celtics, with some of, he usually has like some knee swelling or some bone-on-bone stuff there that he's had to take some time off. I think their defense is probably going to struggle a little bit, just based off the player composition. I'm a little lower on guys like Karis LeVert, and Spencer Dinwiddie than I think some of the general population is, or general NBA fan is. So I tend to lean under there. That's an easy one where I could look really stupid, because they also have Kevin Durant and
Kyrie Irving. So
Yeah.
That's definitely the definition of gambling there on that one. But I do tend to think that they're not quite, in terms of like regular season upside, they're not a 45 win team, 46 win team like someone like the Bucks are. With that as well, there was some news about Kemba's injury today. I think Boston was up in the 45.5 range. Man, I probably should have looked in when these were listed, but they're probably gonna come in at the 4 or 5 seed, lower than that many wins. And then in the East, the Raptors are at 41.5, and I'm just always a believer in whatever the hell voodoo magic Nick Nurse is doing up there. There's a question that we got actually from one of my buddies, Julian, up in Canada, and it was about Nick Nurse and how great they're going to be this year, which he was doing to kind of twist the knife. But the Raptors are awesome in the regular season. I think they lost the Celtics last year, Julian. Just a heads up on that, in case you forgot. Just I didn't want that to go by the wayside, but they're always winning so many games, and they always kind of have like lower expectations because of some roster moves, like maybe Marc Gasol or Serge Ibaka moved on, and then they come out and win 50 games, and they're the second best team in the NBA. So it's just impossible for me to get that low on them. I wouldn't say it's like a monster edge that you need to go mash, but there's always going to be a little upside to the over on the Raptors team versus what the the market has preseason. That's shown to be the case, for the entirety of Nurse's tenure. And it's adjusted and it's gone up. That's why I'm saying it's not a massive edge, but I do think, I tend to think, I took a little bit of it myself. The Raptors just really performed well in the off season. I mean, in the regular season, they got a nice grab from, I want to say San Diego State is where it's from. One of those schools, Mountain West Conference. Malachi Flynn is a nice rookie. Pascal Siakam is great. Lowry's great. OG Anunoby, they got locked up in another contract, and he's another year healthier. So those are the two Eastern Conference kind of things I was looking at. I would probably honestly flip where they have the Nets and the Raptors, just banking on some of the things I talked about. And then in the Western Conference, when I was listening to the pod last time, we were talking about the Oklahoma City Thunder over and how they crushed that even before like the All-Star break. I still think the Thunder, they're not great. They're definitely not as good as last year. Like, not having Chris Paul in Danilo Gallinari, kind of a big deal. And I think Steven Adams too. But I do think that is a fairly decent basketball team in terms of some of their mid-range talent is good. I think that they're kind of in the sweet spot developing some of these younger guys, and that's going to be to their advantage. And then I also think Ricky Rubio's impact in Phoenix last year was pretty underrated. So Al Horford, he's going to be in a better fit. George Hill is a very good player. Like, those are the type of things that I'm trying to pull out for hold on one second. I think I misspoke. Yeah, so I forgot Rubio got moved over to the Timberwolves. So what I was talking about there was the Al Horford trade. He's one of those guys that didn't play well last year, and George Hill was the point guard. I had a note about the point guard being better than people expected with the drop-off with CP3. It is George Hill. This is why I didn't feel prepared for the season. Fantastic stuff. The nice part is the computer does a lot of this for me, so I don't have to actually think this through that well. I knew there was a point guard. It's George Hill. Both of them are actually pretty good at different things. Rubio's a better defender, but I still like the Thunder just because they have them as the worst team in the West. And even with them, if they're tanking or they move one of Al Horford, I still think that they're going to end up with just a few more wins than people expect. And I think it's kind of opposite of the popular opinion there. So maybe a little contrarian look to it. Those would just be the two, Brooklyn and OKC from a win total perspective. And then even a little Toronto I added in there.
Okay.
Just trying to zig when everyone else is zagging. And then, like I said, probably both of them could make me look pretty dumb long term if we come revisit this. But I don't know.
Yeah. And now, I mean, like compared to your average unit with with betting on a day to day, like are you tying that much money up into these over unders?
No, they have lower limits at places too.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Yeah, they have lower limits. And if you have some advantage, like you just try and pick off some things that make the most sense to have tied up. So bigger edges, and honestly, like I would expect all of them to be canceled anyway. I don't know. Seems like there's a real chance that like if they I think the buffer's 2 games from 72 to 70. So yeah, I think there's a real chance to for them not to even grade these out anyway. So I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time or energy. I guess at this point, by the time the podcast release, you probably won't be able to. But those were really just the two that that caught my eye and that I decided were worth tying up a little bit of equity in.
Okay, yeah, and then somebody had about the Knish Detroit over.
Zach Boyd, yeah. I just tend to just on principle, I just disagree with anything Nish says on Twitter. Nish, unfortunately, I do have to admit that he's actually a pretty good dude and is, always willing to help people if they're good people, and that's nice. But yeah, anything he tweets, I basically just disagree with on principle. So yeah, I don't get why he's so excited about Detroit, other than like maybe he's trying to launder some money or something that he wants that bet to happen. But yeah, hard pass on Detroit over for me. I do like the kid they drafted, Killian Hayes, great player. Blake looked a little healthier in the preseason, so that was cool. They're going to be fun to play with together, but they're not going to be a good basketball team.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So the next part here, we're going to transition. Oh, there was one question, one more NBA before I got into like the Christmas stuff, but I don't know how much there had been talks. Maybe it's just me reading people's opinions on this. Maybe it's actual talks that have been happening. But what would your thoughts be if the NBA moved its schedule permanently to where it is now for this year? Would you like that? Like if starting in this late December?
I don't know if it would impact my life at all. I was thinking the other day, like, especially with some of the lockdown stuff, time, like seasonality at this point, especially since I moved like further south, it is just, it's useless to me. Like, I don't know, like I'm not going outside to watch NBA games. And like, I'm not a big like fall, love football, love this, can't watch anything else type of guy. So I could not be more indifferent to this. And I feel bad because I was trying to think of some sort of angle where this would matter. And outside of just a short off season, I don't know. Oh, actually the only thing that would get me would be the overlap between NBA and WNBA would be a little annoying. Like doing both in the bubble is a little bit of a grind, but other than that it's hard to really have an opinion. And I did want to just real quick before we jump into other stuff, I did have someone reach out and ask me what I thought about different individual player statistics. And there's some great discussion about some of this stuff on Nylon Calculus. Seth Partnow does a great job kind of kicking around what's good, what's bad. And the answer there is majority of it's bad. Not in like a harmful way, like it's the worst thing ever. But like, specifically the question asked about like PER, PIE, which is something player, something efficiency from the NBA site, adjusted plus minus, etc. So talking about some of the strengths and weaknesses, basically, if your goal is to use any of this with betting, you need to have an offensive and defensive impact. PR and PIE are using box score statistics, and they're gonna only capture and I think they capture some of the defensive box score statistics, but in general, they're gonna be heavily skewed offensively because that's as like a stat keeping type thing, like those box score things and those like field goal percentage or the things that are driving those are all going to be offensive. So you're really going to overvalue some of the guys like maybe a Trey Young or Carl Towns who are Carl Anthony Towns who are just not good defensively, and you're going to end up being skewed, like missing a good chunk of player evaluation that or player impact estimation that is important when you're trying to predict games. So, is it like you could use PER as a proxy? Like I'd use it as a proxy for like if I wanted to do rookie of the year and see like, who has someone who's playing a lot of minutes and has a high PR, like public stats or like all NBA or all star, that type of stuff. Like they are useful. Like BPM, it has a offensive and defensive component. They're updating that stat again. It's still really box score heavy, which is going to skew it offensively again. And they control for some things, but just in general, a lot of the public box score statistics don't do a good job. And then the other ones you'd see would be like PIPM, which I think is getting taken offline because Jake Goldstein got hired by a team, and that was a really good public statistic. I think it did a great job breaking out defense and estimating impact over a number of seasons as opposed to one, which you'll see in some of this stuff that like Seth and those guys write about, that it's just really noisy on one season and you'd want multiple. And then RPM, which is the ESPN metric, was just re-released with kind of their new staff there, outside of what they originally had there with Jeremiah Engelman, and it seems to be really bad. It seems pretty broken, which is too bad because RPM wasn't perfect, but it was a good stat. And again, it's one season. Basically, just stay away from anything that doesn't have defense and is really just showing, only one season without any sort of like prior information, because it is hard to get a real good impact on someone with just 25 games into a season where, maybe they just had some bad shooting or stuff like that. Sure. My buddy Ryan Davis has a good site, NBA shot chart site. His Twitter's RD11490 if you're looking for him. But that has some more pure on-off adjusted stuff over different season lengths and stuff that I think is a good starting place as opposed to using like PER or BPM. So I did want to touch base on that. That was a good question. Sure. I think a lot of people use those things still, like the highest PER to evaluate players, and they're mostly meaningless except for like offensively.
Okay. All right. Well, let's transition. I guess this is the point where we'll have kind of a lighter topic here in terms of not betting. So if you're, if there might be like a 10 or 15 minute period here where we're not talking about betting. We might have some more questions at the end here, but I did want to address that. One of the questions I didn't have on here was like any like Christmas traditions that you have or just recently started. And one of the things I wanted to bring up was that Advent calendar that I've had the past couple of years, I guess, is kind of a tradition now. And I was, normally I've been drinking these at night, but since I have today off, I had one of my beers, and I don't know if you can really see it that well, but it's a Stone Enjoy By, and they make a lot of these where they have like the Enjoy By date on the as the beer name. So that was the beer for today. So there's a couple more after tonight. But do you have any like Christmas traditions or Christmas drinks that get you in the mood, like, or hey, maybe even like Christmas music? I'm not going to judge you for that.
It was interesting that you mentioned this because I saw this in the outline and I was kind of going through it in my head, and I kind of bummed myself out because I don't know if like how it happened, like growing up, like my family celebrates Christmas. You know, I'm just like super lucky to have as much of my family as I do in my life. They're incredible, but like Christmas to me, is just like more organizing and scheduling. Like that's how it feels, which is kind of a bummer. But I mean, I get to see, you know, you get to see families, not so much this year, but usually. And I think that, you know, I'll throw on like a Spotify Christmas playlist. But I don't even like, I'm not even a big decorator or anything. It's a real bummer to say that out loud. But I don't know, like it's just not, I just feel like you put it up for like 2 weeks and then put it back down, and it's just like this whole endeavor. And then even like to pile on, if people want to make fun of me when I was younger, I was, and it's still a little bit now, like Christmas trees brutal on my allergies. Brutal.
Oh, okay.
So we couldn't even have like real ones in my house. And then like, you know, taking the fake one out every year kind of just didn't have the same feel. Like, so I kind of gypped my family on that growing up. Apologize to my sister there, but I don't know, man. Like it's just, I don't know why. I don't have any specific like gripe with it. I just don't have a huge like list of Christmas traditions or anything. Like there's some Christmas cookies some of my family members make that I like a lot that are pretty good. Some shortbread cookies with like homemade icing. That's sweet. I think that's about off the top of my head, like the craziest thing I got going right now.
Yeah, that's all right. You know,
the advent calendar for beer sounds pretty cool though. That seemed like a much more interesting Christmas tradition than anything that I didn't have.
Yeah, and you know, before last year, I didn't even really realize that they made them, but it's like the perfect synergy. Like there's 24 days in December before Christmas and 24 beers in a typical case. So it's like, you know, it's just like the perfect marketing opportunity for these breweries or like craft beer places to put together. And like I think the last year was a little better than this year. I just the novelty of it last year I think was special. Plus the fact that it was last year it was a surprise gift for me. Like it was the wife gave it to me like a few days before the first of the year or first of the month, and so yeah, like part of those two things are probably part of it. Plus, I think I've had like 5 or 6 repeats. I think from last year, so maybe I had too high expectations, thinking that they were gonna like make everything new and different. It's still better than like I saw like my friend who has who gets like the Aldi package, and Aldi I think sells it for like $40 for their 24 pack. So you're obviously getting lower quality in terms of the beers that you get. I think he said like one brewery had like 11 of the 24 beers of the package. So it's like, I'm glad
that hustle. That's just really mailing it in there. Like, all right, we'll make one stop.
Yeah, like, and I respect the the fact that they've put together one that at least has like I think there's a couple different breweries that have repeats, but maybe like 17 or 18 different breweries represented in the 24 days. So it's like, even if you don't like a beer, it's nice just to have a different a different one pretty much every day. So I already peeked ahead to the other ones because it was the packaging was starting to get awkward in my fridge, because I basically just shoved the 24th pack into my fridge with the packaging still intact, where I couldn't see what beer is what. But now that I was down to like 3 or 4 beers, I was like, fuck it, I just want to I want to get back to my normal fridge. So like I already saw the last 2, and they're repeats of last year, so it's whatever. But I still have other beers. I'm fine. I'll live. I'll manage. I'll survive. But yeah, that's like the thing that's like been my saving grace this year has been the exchanges. Like you were the first one that I did one with, and I've had like 3 or 4 others since then. So I think there's going to be a couple more coming up, and I'm just glad to try different ones, and the Christmas,
especially when you can't travel right now. It's a nice feature.
Yeah.
I had a buddy I swung by to drop something off at his place, and he got me some. It was closer to the Triad area, and he got me some Red Oak beers for dropping something off, which was awesome. I hadn't even like really gone out. Any grocery shopping or anything is pretty much in and out. Not doing a ton of like beer shopping and stuff. Just grab some of the regular ones I like. So that way I'm not going back a ton, that type of stuff. But it was nice to get something new. And my buddy Riffs he's on Twitter too. He's the man. He hooked it up with some new Red Oaks that I haven't tried yet. And that's a great brewery around Greensboro area. So have those for Christmas. Got those on deck. And just we're gonna try something new. Do a wing night on Christmas Eve. I'm a big wing guy, so cook those up for the family and try something new. At this point, like family is just a couple people, so that have all like done the quarantine stuff, which is fine. It's better than nothing. I think a lot of people are struggling being able to see people that they care about. So I'm not here to lament that fact, but it'll be nice to try something. I was talking about the NBA using the bubble to experiment with some stuff, and they didn't really do much, but going to use this kind of fake Christmas to experiment on maybe bringing in some wings, which I would not hate at all.
Nice. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, and the weather will probably be nicer for you than it'll be here. I think we're supposed to hit a little cold streak here coming up.
I'm going golfing with the brother-in-law tomorrow morning. It's gonna
son of a bitch.
It's gonna be 60. Yeah, listen, man, that's the price. That's the payoff for living this close to South Carolina. For living this close to South Carolina, you don't have to do that. So you guys don't get the weather, but that's I am gonna enjoy that.
As you
golfing
should.
Is one of the few activities that you're able to kind of keep doing at a reasonable distance from people, which is great. So taking advantage of that.
Yeah, I've seen some of your gram posts, and it's like the typical not to critique the way your buddies look, but it's it's like what I picture, four guys, four younger guys golfing. That's kind of like the pictures that I see.
Oh yeah. We went down to we all got tested and quarantined, did everything, and we went down to had a little bro fest down in Pinehurst. So my face is out there, like my picture's out there, like I get roasted all the time for this stuff. So that does it is what it is. Like I can't change that, but it is just kind of like stereotypical bro outing. We were able to take some precautions and do one. Pinehurst isn't exactly a hub of people. It's not like we were going out to clubs or anything. So it was nice. So did all that and played 3 courses in Pinehurst, which was a blast. But yes, it was very much like the stereotypical dudes golfing. So I can't. Yeah, that's just what I'm working with at this point. So I'll enjoy it. Being able to play golf on the week of Christmas is awesome. So I'm gonna go. Yeah. That's my Christmas tradition right now. Is hoping I break 100 and don't make life miserable for myself.
Fair enough. I think the typical for me is I think my local course I average about 118 or something like that. So I'm terrible, but
as long as you can get it off the ground occasionally and you can have fun and drink some beers, I think that's the dream right there. I've reworked some stuff and I've tried to improve, and sometimes setting that expectation for yourself just makes it more annoying to play, because then you feel like you're going to be better and then you still stink. Killing that expectation has been the best thing for my golf game, and just going out and enjoying it and being able to do it in the middle of December.
Hell yeah. Yeah. My golf buddy, I don't have any quote unquote bros that play it. But my dad, now that he's retired, it's like his hobby. So,
listen, anytime you want, when stuff gets normal, come down. We'll go do all the bros. We'll go out there.
I'm cool with that.
We'll drink some natty daddies.
I'm sure I'll look out of place, but I really don't care about that.
I mean, you know, one of my buddies in the pictures was like a fisherman in Alaska, has like the big fisherman beer and stuff. So it's like we're getting a little more diverse as we come into our 30s. But
Okay.
yeah, there's some cookie cutter there for sure. That it happens.
That's
so
fine, and I'm sure they're good guys.
Yeah, well, I don't know. They're friends with me, so you got to question their decision making in general.
Yeah.
But I can say that for a lot of you idiots, so that's fair too. You know, people listening are stuck being friends with me, and they got to deal with it.
But okay, so are you still there?
Yep, yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay,
no,
sorry.
I was actually looking at the outline, making sure.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. Okay, so the last Christmas thing, I guess there's 2 more Christmas things, but I wanted to at least flash on the screen because I talk really loud and I'm not sure if my wife's napping or not, so I just have to kind of just show like the gift that I gave here.
Yeah, being in the legal state, the advantages.
And so you could say what you want on your end, and she can't hear. So
it's a good get.
We got that, and then we got this. I don't know how visible it could be seen on my end here for the people watching. It's going to show up in reverse here, but
I can see it pretty well on my end. But
yeah.
Those are good gets, man. We talked about it. Being in the legal state has some advantages. You know, I've been up in it's legal Mass and in Colorado and stuff. And I think that going the edible route is the way to go. Especially, I mean, if you were getting them from like a dealer and not knowing how they were dosed, I would not say the same because you could. That's how people. I mean, everyone in the world has a story like I took too much. You know, like I freaked out and had like too much of an edible, right? Like that's like the most classic weed story of all time. But if you get them pretty well dosed like that at the legit legal places, you know, I've had some that are really enjoyable, really smooth. It can be fun. Like I was saying, toss on like a good movie, get the snack set up. You can plan it out. It's a far cry from like when, you know, I remember when I was in like high school or like college, like having to smoke out of some sort of like plastic apparatus or something. All my buddies would be like engineering things and stuff. Like it's nice that you can just go grab a thing of chocolate and relax on the couch and hang out where it's legal. So those will be a blast. That's a good get.
Yeah. I feel like it's a gift for 2020, just how things have been. It's a unique gift. It's a gift that I've definitely never purchased before. So it's like she's been, the past couple days I did my shopping and for her, and kudos to her. She did all the shopping for everybody else and did all the wrapping for everybody else. So I can't really complain about having to do shopping just for her. So I'm very thankful for that. But
yeah, I think it'll be like you mentioned, it'll be a little bit of surprise, and you can plan around it, and it'll be it's a fun time. So benefit, like I was saying, I get golf tomorrow, but I also live in the Bible Belt, and that'll never be legal here in a million years. So you got that advantage being up there in Chicago. So definitely take advantage of it. I was up in it is legal up in Mass too, and some of the prices are crazy, but honestly, like for the edible stuff that you got, having the dosage well done is such a huge difference maker, and it kind of allows you to scale up and scale down as you need. So that'll be a blast. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to the to giving that gift, giving these gifts here.
We'll report back her. For our All-Star break.
We'll do. So have you gotten your shopping done? Have you or are you still slacking?
Yeah. I lean on my family to do like I just like send over the funding that I need, and we get like family gifts for everybody. We got a big Irish Catholic family with thousands of people, it feels like. So, I let my mom and my sister help me out, organize a little bit, and then I take whatever they need for like maybe some of the guy cousins or anything that they may not have any good ideas for. I'll try and chip in on that stuff, but then that's all taken care of, and like at this point, like this year, you're just shipping everything directly to people, so that's nice. Not a ton of like wrapping and stuff, and I think I'm done. I have it's a small family thing down here for me this year, so didn't have to get a ton. And I'm not like a very organized person, so there's a real chance I may still need to get presents and I'm not done. So I could definitely, like, if there could for sure be a scramble here at some point in my future, or like an oh shit moment on Thursday or Friday, but I'm feeling good. Like, not being around the whole family and like forgetting someone that way, it feels good to know that like someone was helping my dumb brain out, not forget anybody, and I just got to take care of a few people down here.
Yeah. I think there is one or two. We're having a very small get together on Christmas Eve, and I think there's like one gift that we still don't like. One or two gifts that aren't here yet, and kind of just trying to plan like, all right, well, what do we do if they don't get here? And I think that's kind of her approach, and I'm like, well, it's out of my hands now, so it's like I feel like most people would probably be understanding if like they, if you ordered something like a couple weeks ago and it's still not here, like, it's kind of just like out of your hands. And
yeah, my thing is, if people are upset about it, then they don't deserve it. Like, I hope it never comes for you. Like, you got to do it. Like, with everything going on right now, if you're really that wrapped up in like it took an extra week for stuff to get delivered, and I feel bad because I see people like getting wrapped up, like real bent out of shape about it, and I get why, because they want like stuff to be there for others and stuff. But like, to me, if someone was like, "Hey, your president come in because of points at like literally everything going on in the world," I'd be like, oh man, that checks. Like, I know they're not making up a lie for me, like it's a global pandemic, supply chain pretty tough right now. So
it's not like I just ordered it today and expected to get here tomorrow. Like,
see, now if I may actually go the other way, and like if I did forget anything, I might just leverage that as an excuse. Be like, how the damn post office is now.
Yeah. You don't need to tell them exactly when you bought it, I guess. So.
Right. Yep. So I'm going to use that to my benefit, if anything. But like I said, if people are really upset about that at this point, then man, I don't know what.
I've had some life events happen around this time of the year, like the stuff like 7 years ago when my friend's nephew passed away at like age 4, and like my wife going through the ICU at the same time, like, future wife, I don't have the same like enthusiasm about the holidays, like, and you got to remember that some people are kind of like that. They have missing loved ones, especially out of all years, especially this year. It's like, you have other things on your mind, and it's like, I hope people prioritize those kinds of things over like receiving a gift on time. But you never know with people.
Listen, Christmas. Everyone in my family knows it's food and watching NBA basketball that they absolutely do not care about. So that's my gift to them. I might get relegated to the basement this year, but
that's fine. I love the basement. That's where I'm recording this.
I try and flex my youngest sibling powers as much as I can, though. I got to make sure they don't get rusty. Try and take over the TV or something. Maybe dictate. Like this year, I dictated Wings for Christmas Eve. You got to try and do something to make sure you're not losing your foothold. But
you're the youngest. I'm the oldest, so I guess I never really had like the. And I never thought about it from your point of view.
Oh yeah, listen, you got to make sure you're bullying everybody and taking advantage of everything. So, there'll be some good games on. We talked about this a little bit up in the outline, but yeah, there'll be some great games on Thursday. It'll be good to have the season back. Hopefully, the Corona stuff will hold out for that many games, and we can at least get that.
Yeah. So what besides the C's game, what game are you looking most forward to on Christmas?
Let me see. I think
there's 5 games if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, there is. So I think the Clippers and the Nuggets are going to be the last. I'm a huge Jokic guy. That's the late night one. West Coast, like everything will be simmering down. You'll have had a couple, coffee and Baileys or something going. The watching Jokic play is just so much fun. And the Clippers are they have a really good defensive center too. So watching those guys go at each other will be a blast. The Pelicans and the Heat is the early game. I mean, anytime you get a chance to watch Zion play, I would say do that. And Jimmy Butler will play, and I do like that they're adding in some new teams on these and some new stars and bringing some of the younger guys. Like having Zion is going to be really important. They also have Luka at 8 p.m. I think, after the Celtics Nets, I'd probably say Lakers, Mavericks, and Clippers, Nuggets going to be a coin toss. Excuse me. But Warriors, Bucks. I just don't think the Warriors have the juice this year, and I don't think that'll be particularly close. It'll probably be a pretty significant spread, like 11 or something off the top of my head.
Okay.
So that won't be too close. Heat should probably take care of business, but at least you'll see Zion put Kelly Olynyk into the earth on a dunk or something fun.
Yeah, a few highlights.
Right, like watching Duncan Robinson try and stop Zion in transition and just get blown into dust. But yeah, those will be interesting in the early games. Watching Luka and LeBron play against each other is going to be appointment television for the next couple of years. I wouldn't miss a Dallas Lakers game on national TV game if you can. Last year they had a couple and they went to overtime or right down to crunch time, and LeBron and Luka are trading shots, and it's awesome. So though I think outside of the Celtics Nets game, I think Mavericks Lakers is going to be awesome.
Okay. All right. Let's go into the listener questions here. I know you've already touched base on some of these, but the one I had to address, the non-basketball one, from Andy about the rumors that you treat people at your daytime show poorly. What about those rumors? And obviously that's
you don't have the editing skills to put in that picture of me and Ellen, man. That's tough.
I don't.
It's tough, man.
That's fantastic. I didn't get it. It took me a second to process that question, but then once I realized what it was about, I lost it. So.
Yeah, I got ahead. I tried to get ahead of it. I just was like,
So for people who haven't seen it, there's a striking resemblance, one of your pictures to the way Ellen looks.
Yeah, Ellen's kind of gotten the same haircut as me. I like to think I haven't quite aged out as much as she has. We've got a couple of decades different, but. I think that the picture itself, I saw it come up and I was just waiting for someone to tag me in it. So I was like, you know what, I'm getting ahead of this. I know this looks like me. Please don't say anything mean. I just had and man, talk about the worst doppelganger of all time. Not only is it a 50-year-old woman who's my doppelganger or however old Ellen is, it's also she's a terrible person. So yeah, Andy was asking why I treat my employees poorly. I would never treat them the way Ellen does. I do treat some people I work with on betting stuff poorly, but it's just niche. So no harm, no foul there, guys.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think. There's been a couple of people that people have tagged me on that look like me. I know that when I had the beard, there's some golfer, I think Shane Lowry, I think his name is, that I kind of look like.
That one. Yeah, that's a good one.
There was one. There's actually a poker player that I supposedly look like. That I don't know how well known he is, and I forgot his name, but I could I'd have to look him up. But it's always the huskier, bearded, you kind of get typecast. I'm okay with being typecast, but
I have my couple type of guys that I look like, and I gotten Harry Kane, stuff like that. So yeah, I know when I'm gonna get it, and when I see pictures of people, I'm like, yep, I'm gonna get that guy. I'm gonna get that guy. When Matt Barkley was in playing for the Jets for a little bit, I got him. I can see it coming, and unfortunately, I saw it coming with that Ellen picture, and I was like, oh shit! Someone's gonna see this and just. To be on Twitter is fun and stuff, but man, not great for my self-esteem. People just gang. I invite it, but like the Ellen one in particular that was a tough one because I couldn't even deny that I look like her there.
Yeah, if you go on to Twitter for self-esteem, then you're
I've already lost the battle there for sure.
That's a you problem, to be honest.
Yep.
You go to Twitter to lose your self-esteem, not to gain self-esteem.
I still log in every day, so
yeah. as do I.
Self-inflicted.
As do I. I kind of like to think that I put it in TweetDeck dark mode for like a reason. Just the dark angle of Twitter just seems. Having Twitter be dark, that's just how Twitter is. So, anyways, all right. So you touched base here on the question about the individual player metrics. The other one was about home nerd Slack asked about home court.
I talked about that a little
advantage.
bit. I tried.
Yeah, you did. You did.
Yeah, there's a group of people in NBA like discussion Slack that's good. I know there's the RAS betting Slack too, or betting talk Slack. I don't know what they call it. Whenever Ed's running over there, and that I pop in on too. That has always, there's some guys that contribute there that are helpful, and there's usually good. There's nothing wrong with discussing some of this stuff in big groups because you can kind of like, what's the saying? The wisdom of the crowd. I don't know how wise that particular crowd is, from one to another. But that being said, like, if you are looking to get more into betting and betting basketball, finding those communities and talking with people that kind of work on that stuff is always a good way to do it. So they asked specifically about the home court advantage stuff. It's mostly going to be handling rest and seeing travel stuff.
Yeah, and I think home court / home field. If I'm not mistaken, just based on having previous podcasts with Seth for football and other people, I feel like in general with sports it's gone down, and I don't know if it's it's probably I'm guessing a combination of better travel than there used to be, and like just better conditioned athletes, and
they're really particular about this stuff. There's more of a science to resting and travel and where doing road trips in different segments and that type of stuff. So they do a pretty good job with that. And then from there you just gotta try and find a little niche. I think I talked about like some of the altitude back-to-backs and things like that on other episodes. That's where you got to find eke out the edges there, because it does matter, like finding where there's some impact, but much less than it did a few years back.
Yeah, because a lot of this stuff the book's already figured out, so you're not actually getting an advantage by finding a team that played Utah one night and then Denver the next. That's already weighed into the line for the most part, in most cases, I would imagine. So it's you're not finding those type of edges, I'm guessing, as often maybe as you do now. I'm guessing the books probably get the information just as quick, or if not quicker.
I would probably. There are some not really trends, but things that like are more pervasive across the league, like officiating changes where maybe there's more fouls or less fouls, or pace changes, or stuff you'll see that happens on like a league-wide level that you can maybe take advantage of for a little bit. Maybe like market's a little slower to adjust to, but those don't last very long, and you got to be careful that it's not just like some outlier night where like a couple teams played that there were 1 million fouls or something crazy, So
sure,
you got to pick and choose your spots there, like everything else, but you're not going to find a ton of like just blind situational spot betting where teams are going to give you a huge edge. The big thing, and I guess, I just saw we're coming up on 2 hours, so I do that way you can wrap it up into 2 hour long things for people. But I do want to say, like, the big thing there would be like trying to predict whether or not they're going to rest any key guys for this stuff.
Yeah. Okay, and the last one was I guess we should have lumped this in with the over under at the Houston 34.5. Somebody was asking if it was a joke at this point.
It seems like Harden doesn't want to be there, so that seems pretty bad for betting a win total. That being said, like if he does play a good amount of games. Like it's very, very low. So you just got to figure out how long you think that that Harden's going to be there, because I couldn't tell you. It looks like every day. Like there was a news story today about him throwing a ball at his teammate, so his rookie teammate. So I don't know. Like seems not great down there. So I think that's why he said like something about like the teammate thing, the fade the Harden fight beef thing. That was Sprott's better. Was a nice guy. I mean he's right that the team is better than what the win totals have them at 100%. But like then you got to bet on team composition and how long things last, and I am going to avoid doing that because I have no idea.
Sure. Okay. All right. Well, I mean, as far as our outline goes, that's the end of our outline. Is there anything else that you wanted to bring up here?
No. I was actually, it's funny. I should have kept the eye on the timer because I was trying to keep it into because people like when I send it, will be like, I'm not listening to you for an hour, but actually, it doesn't. People will be driving and stuff around Christmas, so maybe it'll even out. But
you know what? I think there's a setting on YouTube anyways where you can listen to something at 1.25 or 1.5 or something like that.
Yeah, listen to mine at 15x, so you don't hear much. I mean, before the season, it's good to preview things, and I know Seth is into a couple. I don't really go team by team quite as much, but it was good to break down some of the teams like that. I don't really have much. I think just keep tabs on if you're going to bet basketball, just watch headlines. That's really going to be the key this year, and try and figure out when teams are announcing players out for COVID. Watch the screen, see if they're going to if you think people are going to overreact in one way to a guy being out. Then you can wait for that. If you think people are going to react the way you do, you can try and get ahead of it. So that would be the way I would approach those in this season in general.
All right. Well, once again, thanks for joining. I look forward to our next our beer exchange. I need to start coming up with some ideas. So we'll slip into the DMs for that, and maybe our next one will have discussion about that. So. But yeah, thanks for joining.
No problem. Yeah, thanks for having me again. And I guess, and I even convinced my guy Horst to come on. So that'll be do a little teaser for the next one. Horst is he's the man.
So actually, the next one's probably going to be Ryan Goldberg, who was on before. Like he's the one who did the dissection of the the RJ Bell.
He had a great article, and he dealt with the lawsuit and stuff, so that'll be a great one.
So he's been on before, but we're gonna revisit that, and also some horse racing stuff, and he also had a documentary on ESPN that just appeared I think a week or two ago. So I'll be promoting that shortly. I'll be recording that next week, I think, and Horse on the Shore will be I think probably towards the start of 2020.
Yeah, make sure you ask. I'll have some viewer questions for Horse. I'll chime in on those ones for sure.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it, Kevin. Thanks for joining. And you yourself, your family, and everyone listening have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year. Just in case I don't get to recording the next one in time, but I'll say it anyways in case you don't listen to the next one. But hope you do. But anyways, thanks for joining once again, Kevin, and safe one to you and yours. And I hope everything.
We'll talk soon, man.
Well.
I appreciate it, man. I hope you're feeling better, and hope you guys have a good Christmas.
Yeah, thanks, man. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. Have a good night.